wonderful weekend. It is Mental Health Monday. We got a huge block today. We're going to get the mental health stuff out of the way as the inoculation against the COVID block. Yeah. Still with us. Yes, unfortunately, we have to. Yeah. But we're gonna contain the COVID today. We're gonna keep it in a COVID block. Today is our first day in the new time slot. Thank you so much for everybody who woke up an hour earlier after losing an hour. Why did we do it this week? Because it's 2 hours difference for us in Arizona where we don't do daylight. Man, this morning I got a dumb daylight saving story already. And it's not me complaining about people calling it daylight savings time because it's daylight saving time on the internet. Because if someone on the internet is wrong, I have to correct them. Or the fact that I referred to it as daylight savings time incorrectly my entire life up until a couple years ago. But no, Verizon. Hey, good morning. Verizon sprung me forward, even though I'm like, I moved to Arizona so that I wouldn't have to do the silly daylight saving time bullshit. And here we are. And Verizon fucks. So I go to bed, stayed up late, just doing some stuff, getting ready for today. First time, new time zone, new producer, new time slot, new producer, new co-host, all together here. We got Comment Jim Freedom now, executive producer Jim Freedom, and Stephen McClure on Comment Stephen. Doesn't have the same ring as Comment Jim. But so this morning, I set my alarm and I woke up and I go, okay, it's 6:30. Got to go to the office right away and do hour and a half prep before the show. And I get here and I'm like, my phone says it's 6:40 a.m., but it's still dark out. Sunrise is supposed to be in 7 minutes here. That's not right. And then I look at my laptop and I go, oh my gosh, my laptop went off. No, my laptop is right. And I look at my phone is an hour off. Like they sprung me for. Verizon is fucking with my time on behalf of government and costing me an hour of sleep this morning. So I restarted my phone, got on the right time zone. Here we are. So don't forget, go to adversustheman.com for our Patreon if you want to support the show. Welcome to our new patrons over the weekend. Thank you very much for joining us. It was kind of cool to see that happen while I was doing other things, working on the cabin here. Very excited that I have, I guess for now, he would be an interim shadow prime minister of Gardenia. Patrick Lewis 420, Pat Rock is here. And we got a lot of work done on the cabin today. Very excited about, over the weekend. It was a lot of fun. I learned how to do electrical. Yeah. I can't say like I'm an expert and we still have like a lot of work to do running wire through the house. But in terms of like, I've got my solar system here. We're going to be moving over to the cabin. It's going to go feed a breaker box to traditional 120 electric to the whole house. And it was pretty cool. I've been like mounting lights and switches and outlets and things like that. And we're getting ready to do the installation and drywall. So more pictures coming soon at the Garden of Freedom on Instagram. But if you want to support the show, adamversustheman.com. Go to Patreon. From there, $10 a month. That's really where it's at. And today we're going to go to Stephen for our comment contest. Stephen, what would you like to see from the audience today?
How about instead of being comment, Stephen, I am stupid shit people say on the internet, Stephen.
Yes, we can do that. Stupid shit people
shit you can say.
Reporting for duty.
The dumbest shit you can say wins you a membership. And let's talk about that for a moment. So if you're on the Patreon and you are on the Producers Club, you may end up as a co-host. We are going to be doing rotating co-hosts. So I am not a co-host. I am the co-host captain. And right now it's just me for the next couple of days. But at some point you're going to see other co-hosts. And we're going to allow that to come from our Executive Producers Club. So $10 a month could win you a slot on Adam's show on a regular basis. Stupid
Well, so
shit.
that's the buy-in. How do you want people to win today? What do you? I mean,
Say
stupidest
dumb
shit people
shit.
say.
Say stupid shit.
All right, get Steven's attention, blow Steven's mind, say some stupid shit. You
Oh,
can
we
win
gotta we
membership.
gotta contest it.
Biden is my president. What are you trying to do? Trigger us? Oh, that's a great start to the
Oh,
day.
here we go. It's already started.
Oh.
Yeah.
Support APAC.
I don't even know what that is. I'm gonna assume that
Oh, American Israel Political Affairs Committee. It's basically I don't know, there might be one word off there, but it's it's basically the Israel government's lobbying arm for the U.S. government.
So it's like they want us to kill people on their behalf and give them money that we're just
Yeah,
gonna.
basically.
Oh, oh, we got more contestants. It's starting.
Go ahead and read that one from CJ. That's good.
Tommy Peterson's Kamala is my president, and CJ Abernathy. We need taxation in order to live in a civilized society.
Yeah, we should. I almost want to get make T-shirts if we can find a way to make him not unintentionally supporting her that say uh, Kamala Harris is my president.
Well, so what do you think about a Kamala 2022 shirt? Because if she takes over 2 years after he was president, then she can run for 2 more terms. So I'm thinking like February 2022, March 2022, he's going to have a horrendous heart attack.
Why? I don't know. Shouldn't we be counting on that happening more? Well, when is it not too soon to be unbelievable? You know what I mean? Like that's kind of what we're waiting for here.
So
Because
legally speaking, it has to happen after January 20th, 2022. So, and like, they're
why?
so if it happens after the halfway mark, she can run for 2 terms. So she can be president for
Oh,
10 years.
is that
Um,
really how that works? The terms thing?
that is how that works.
Okay. I was unaware of that constitutional quirk of the illegal constitution we're living with today.
Yeah.
But all right, so let's jump in, and I want to we'll check back in with Stephen. We had 2 blocks before our guest. Our guest today, and this is going to be an interesting one. Brandon Martinez, founder of altright.com, which is now really, I guess, Richard Spencer's website, according to the masthead. He is well, it doesn't say what his actual title is here, but he's the only one on the masthead right now. But the gentleman we're speaking to today, Brandon Martinez, is apparently looking at coming in ready to move in a libertarian direction. So we'll see. There was a weird trend, and I remember seeing a cartoon about this. Not that cartoons determine political dynamics, no, but there was a significant claim by people in the alt-right, like Christopher Cantwell, that it's the next level of woke after libertarian, and that people were there was the cartoon was the libertarian to alt-right pipeline, and you go, no, I think it's a lot more the other way around, actually. But there was a weird shift in the other direction. So to see this perhaps articulated now coming from alt-right to more libertarian, we'll see what that means with Brandon Martinez when we get into it. But for now, let's go to our Mental Health Monday block. So we're going to do, oh wait, no, sorry, one more thing before we do this. We have a video up thanks to former executive producer, now CEO of Adam versus the Man, CJ Abernathy. And the video is Rogan admits to lying about censoring Adam Kokesh, Alex Jones, and Spotify complicit. So, Jim, if you got that pulled up, let's just do a teaser of that. If you want to, play a minute or two, whatever feels good, whatever feels right for you as a producer. You get the audio on that clip? I wasn't hearing it. I will be sharing this as we speak on my Twitter.
Bring it back up with audio this time.
Oh, okay, that's it. Yeah. Okay, so Jim, learning the ropes as executive producer. He has one extra button you have to push to bring a video up, so it's not just playing in the background while I ramble. And everybody said, "Yeah, no, Adam, those guys are too respectful and respectable. There's no way they would do that to their. I mean, Alex Jones would never lie to his audience." By the way, quick sidebar on that. Just saw the video of Alex Jones slamming Donald Trump in January 2019.
You just now saw that? You just now are seeing that?
Yeah, someone sent it to me yesterday because we were talking about Alex Jones on Twitter. And I was like, well, that makes it worse for Alex. He's not a sucker for Donald Trump. He's a fucking sellout. He was against him, and he asked his audience to support him anyway. I wonder how much he was getting paid. If Donald Trump wanted to break off a few million for him, I'm sure it would have been easy, but not as easy as it was for Spotify to break off $100 million to buy Joe Rogan and control his platform, show, and audience, and to get his old episodes censored, like the one that I was on. How about that? Is that as far as you want to go? Where are we? Are we frozen? Am I on? Hey! All right, so that was a good clip, Jim. Good start. And just to make sure that everybody understands what's happening here, Joe Rogan, I think it was last week. I know we did this segment last week. We're just getting the video now, but releasing it, promoting it on Monday on the show. But I think it was about a week ago on Joe Rogan's podcast. It came up, and he kind of let it slip, and it sounded like, I mean, thinking about it now, it's like he wanted to admit it, like he wanted to come clean, and then just barely just let it slip that, oh yeah, the thing with those episodes of mine that didn't get carried over to my archive on Spotify when I gave them exclusive rights to this podcast for $100 million. I hope that this reaches him. I hope that it at least has some impact. And I want to reiterate here that, like, there are people, I mean, Joe Rogan is pretty universally liked and respected. I mean, there's some people who don't like him for comments about gender athletes and like sort of specific things like that he said politically that are relatively, I don't want to say insignificant, but almost fringe issues that people have taken issue with. But he's a sort of uncommitted libertarian who voted Joe Jorgensen, but sort of endorsed Bernie Sanders. So I don't know where he stands on this, but I know when there's that much money involved and that big of an audience involved, there's going to be pressures that none of us can really understand or relate to. So I hope I hope Joe Rogan sees this. I hope he takes it as an invitation to do the next right thing. So today, please share this video right now. It's in the notes. If you haven't seen the notes, and we're developing this channel, t.me/Adam versus the man. So check it out on Telegram, t.me. Somewhere it's gonna pop up because Jim's on his shit. It's t.me/Adam versus the man. If you can find this link, or you can go to my Twitter. There it is, @Adam Kokesh, and I just posted it there. So please retweet that, share this video. If you have ways to get, like, you can't just, I mean, obviously if it's tweeted at Joe Rogan, it's got him in the tweet. If it gets 1 million retweets, it's not going to, but it would get his attention. But if you have other creative ways of sending this to people around him to get his attention, maybe get me back on the show, maybe get him on. I mean, really, it's time. Like, I would want to get him on this show. We've invited him a few times and never officially got through. You and troll Joe who? Joe the sellout Rogan. I mean, Joe Mama. So, like, excuse me. So I don't want to jump, like I said, I don't want to jump to condemning Joe Rogan for everything, but selling out. Yeah, I mean, but even then, is selling out in and of itself. I mean, it sort of has a universally negative connotation. I think there's like a good, there's a good version of selling out, but there could be a justified version. You think of selling out in the vernacular as referring to compromising your integrity for money. Um, I would be willing to do that for the greater good. Hey, to anybody who's, hey, Spotify's out there, you can censor all of my old episodes for $100 million. The difference between me and Joe Rogan is that I'm going to take that $100 million and print copies of freedom and give them to everybody in America for free. I'm going to spend that right back on activism. So again, I think there's more to come out about this Joe Rogan story, but for now, there you have it. So to our mental health block, the Jerusalem Post: stress and anxiety caused by smartphone use revealed in new TAU study. An excessive amount of time spent on social media is also likely to cause teeth grinding and facial muscle pain. Wow. Yeah, I mean, I guess it makes sense because, like, I mean, same like with I'm watching TV. Maybe it's a little different because it's sort of a passive activity, right? And I'm not promoting TV use. I'm just pointing out that with the nature of the engagement with a smartphone creates a different sense of awareness, and so you lose a body awareness. And this is just, hey, posture, hey, right now, this is maybe we should do this in like the opener of the show with our promos every day. How's your posture? Oh, by the way, last week, and Jim, if you can pull this up, I know there's a total interruption here. You can pull this up on my Twitter. The pinned tweet is still our listing for calling for recruit for help with Adam versus the Man with Homefront Battle Buddies, Stephen and I's new veteran service organization to help veterans pursue alternative healing therapies, and the Gardenia Sovereignty Project. So check that out. Pin post on Twitter. Been getting a few good emails. We're building the team where it's like we're getting the band back together almost. We got some old people coming back. We got some new people. Chris Gannon. Hey, haven't heard from Chris for a while. I would smack you so hard if Spotify offered you $100 million to join their network and you turn them down. Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't. So, understand, what is your objective? Set, like I would say, yeah, I would sell out for $100 million because I know I can serve the greater good with that. So anyway, back to the mental health here. When you're on a smartphone, there is a kind of active engagement that would cause your posture to be slouched, facial muscles to be tense. If you're grinding your teeth, you might not even notice that. Like if you're watching TV, you're observing, someone's telling you a story. When you're online on your phone or on social media, you're looking for stuff and you're responding to stuff, and you're still in a screen and possibly losing that body consciousness in a much more compromised position physically. So let's see, there's a study from the Tel Aviv University's Maurice and Gabriela Goldschlager School of Dental Medicine carried out a new study claiming that excessive time spent on social media or on mobile phones leads to an increased chance of pain in jaw and mouth muscles, teeth grinding, sleep problems, fatigue, and drowsiness during the day. About 600 participants participated in the study, which included secular Jews, mostly smartphone users, and a group of ultra-Orthodox Israelis, those who use a phone without an internet connection. The participants were asked about feelings of stress and tension throughout the day, tendency to wake up at night, and need to be available to the cell phone, teeth grinding, and jaw pain. Studies found that 54% of smartphone users wake up in the middle of the night, compared with 20% from the ultra-Orthodox population. Now, there's something else about this that I want to combine with our experience right now, without mentioning the virus which shall not be named. We haven't talked about it much lately, but it's not like doom scrolling isn't a thing, right? And this is something that when certain physical things or external things are kept from you or taken from you, your incentive is warped to spend more time engaged with the world through your phone. And then a lot of people end up doom scrolling, and that's going through looking bad news, and and just being awash with that. And COVID has given the media this so ripe environment. We're just drowning us in propaganda and bad news and bad news and bad news. And there, I think like right now, there's so many Americans, millions of Americans, with COVID maps in their head, like better than mine, as someone who reads the news very deliberately every day, because I don't waste the bandwidth on that bullshit. But there are people who are like, okay, there were 10 deaths in this city today and 20 in this city, and oh, they're down to 1 there, and they're following this in this surge of this virus flowing through society in their imagination, based on false numbers and distorted reality and delayed reporting and all sorts of crazy shit. And then they're in this world of, well, why am I locked down? I want to do something about it. Let's look at this. And they keep looking at that. And so this leads to a whole other, well, as it says, or as one of the study author says, quote, in today's day and age, people live with a sense of FOMO, fear of missing out. And so they want to stay constantly updated and know what's new every moment. This need naturally creates a growing dependence on cell phones, which leads to feelings of stress and anxiety. Someone might write something on social media and I'll miss it and not be in the loop. Other reports confirm that a mental health pandemic of depression, substance abuse, post-traumatic, and even suicide are among the effects of the coronavirus pandemic. And this, I mean, I hate to say like, oh, I told you the cure is worse than the disease, because this isn't really that. But one more thing to be aware of, particularly in the era of COVID, your smartphone use, your healthy consuming of information, being conscientious of that, and at the same time being aware of your body, stopping and checking in with your body, periodically, building a lifestyle. Like for me, it's every day. I mean, I'm out here in Gardenia. I have stuff to do that just like compels me to go play outside and build stuff and do manual labor and work and build. And if I have a day where that doesn't happen, I got my pile of weights in the dirt. I'll go lift weights and but even without that, it's very hard with the life I've designed for myself. Having animals is really good for this. Hold on, let me read something. So this country, Colette Allen, this country uses pessimistic views as a form of control. Well, don't say that. You're really mixing terms there, but you're right to point this out. It's not this country, but certain powers that be that control the conversation do that, obviously. But I just want to share one of the things that I appreciate about the life that I've created for myself here, excuse me, that keeps me from being sedentary, that keeps me physically active and engaged. So even on days when I find myself on my phone or on my laptop for a long period of time, I'm at least aware of my posture. By the way, cell phone in bed, unhealthy for a lot of other reasons, but at least posturally better. I mean, I think we get so much done. Part of the challenge with your phone is that you have because it used to be like your computer. This is my okay boomer moment, right? Yeah, it used to be that on your computer you did work and then you stopped and you got off, and it was like an office space mentally you get into. But now the computer is everything, and the phone is everything that the computer can do in your hand, in your pocket at the same time. That's crazy, and I get a lot done with my phone. I don't want to say phone time is bad, because it's not that. It's that, maybe you get like, and this happens to me too. Like I'll get on my phone to say, okay, I need to look this one thing up, and I need to go back to work or check my messages if there's anything urgent, and I get distracted. And a lot of people have social media set up as alerts. Don't. I mean, you got to be very. What is an alert on your phone? And I keep the actual ways for people to communicate with me pretty narrow, and that's like text message, which it's basically that's it, text message, but all through regular text, Telegram, WhatsApp, and Signal, and I think I have a couple others, but I don't. Those are the ones that I use. I don't want more icons than that. I got to check. That's what I get for alerts. That's it. No email alerts, no social media alerts. But even then, like I'll get on my phone and I'll have like, oh, I got to order this part or this tool. Stephen McClure, hey guys, let's cuss each other in the chats. Thank you. I thought you wanted stupid shit. Uh, so when I'm on my phone, I keep my ringer off all the time. No alerts, not on vibrate, off. And I usually have my call forwarding set to forward to a Google Voice number. And the reason that's important, little life hack, is that it doesn't ping your phone. So like right now, I'm actually broadcasting through my phone because it's my most reliable internet connection here. And with this, if I get text alerts that come down, but I'm using Telegram to talk to the producers club and a Jim during the show, which reminds me, you have 2 alerts here. If you got me on Telegram, don't send me a ton of shit. All right, Mr. Liberty in the producers club says sorry for cussing in the chat, but those dudes are fucking tools. This is what we say about you tools in the private chat at the producers club if you want to join us. Check out Patreon. All right. But no, so if you have your phone on airplane, then you can't do data or text, right? But if you have calling, you can't turn off calling without an alert still coming through that your phone is blocking a call, and it'll interrupt Zoom calls, and I do interviews on Skype sometimes. I think it interrupts that if I get those alerts. So I have my call forwarding on. So it just sends you to a voicemail on Google Voice that says, if I wasn't expecting your call, you better text me. and that's how I use this device to avoid those temptations to anxiety. So I hope that just those little tricks, in terms of how you use your phone, become relevant when you go, oh geez, I experienced it. Try this, please try this, because everybody's got some anxiety in their life. No one, 0 to 10, and everybody's got base level and level fluctuating levels, right? And periodic fluctuations. And unless you're the dude who's so the dude, that you're abiding and you are at 1 all the time, you're just cruising like 0 to 1 anxiety on a scale of 0 to 10, and I'm just super chill, no anxiety. Unless you're just in that, and you have a smartphone. I assume if you're watching this, you have some kind of cell phone at least. But you have some access to technology. Just take these kinds of things into consideration for how you use this technology, especially how your habits have changed during COVID, because it might be really like maybe COVID and maybe the lockdowns aren't making you anxious. Maybe it's just because you have been incentivized to change your lifestyle a little bit, and now you spend an extra 2 hours a day doom scrolling or on your phone doing whatever. Maybe that's what's actually causing your anxiety. And as we're seeing, and this is nothing new, but I think this is always a good, healthy, positive reminder that cell phone use, especially now, they're saying it's got teeth grinding and facial muscle pain. And of course, there's all the other postural stuff. It's cell phone neck. And, I've gotten that where I've noticed I've slipped out of my habit. And I'll look down at my phone and you'll catch me. Like I'll pull it out, do a thing, put it away, or check my messages, put it away. But if I'm going to sit and be on my phone, I'll sit back, put my elbows on something and hold it right, directly in front of my face, comfortable distance. And I got my head up straight or lean back, and I'm relaxed like that. And at least try to be conscious of my posture the same way you would be if you were sitting down at a laptop or a desktop computer station for 8 hours a day. You'd want a really nice office chair and something that's comfortable for you and all of that. So Tony Churchill, it's going to spend full days off the internet. Yes, and that's another thing. Thank you. So if anybody else, Colette Allen, my anxiety rises when I can't find my grinder. Yeah, but if anybody else has any tips here that they want to share, please. Taking time to just do digital detox, that's really powerful. Even if it's just for like a 4-hour chunk a few times a week. And I love and it's not even digital detox, it's connect. The thing is, I still have to take my phone with me to play music on my Bluetooth speaker while I'm out playing with my electric chainsaw, right? And that's what I do. But I do very consciously think of it as like, okay, I'm not responding to messages. And this is the other thing is I use my phone as a notepad. And I use the simplest notepad app. I think if you go to the app store, it's just called Notepad. But it's like my pile of papers that I would have normally. I used to have on my desk or in desk drawers instead of a pile of paper of notes. I have Notepad on my phone. And if I'm out on the chainsaw, I want to be able to go to my phone. If I have an idea, okay, well, this is where I go write it down. And if you can't do that without checking your messages, don't use your phone that way. Get a paper notepad or figure out a way to have that detached time. Illinois 4545, nature bathing and exercise. Nature bathing. Is that what it's called? Just spending time in nature? I like that. Nature bathing. Or you're talking about like taking a bath in nature. Manual labor, ignore the phone. Yeah, so just time like that. But even just to think about like a deliberate day every now and then, and it's not like I have to spend 24 hours in detox, but give yourself, a full day's worth of activity when you can be away from your phone for 8 hours and be able to commit to that. These aren't like hard and set things. Everybody, these are ideas to share to be more conscientious of. Now we got two more fun stories in our Mental Health Monday segment before I finally hit this pipe I've been holding on to the whole show. BBC.com, psychedelic therapy could reset depressed brain. Yeah. Powerful hallucinogenic drug known for its part in shamanic rituals is being trialed as a potential cure for depression for the first time. Participants will be given the drug DMT, followed by talking therapy. It is hoped this could offer an alternative for the significant number of people who don't respond to conventional pills for depression. Psychedelic-assisted therapy might offer long-term relief from symptoms, some researchers believe. So, there are a number of times that, the last thing about the story, this will be the first time DMT is given to people with moderate to severe depression in a clinical trial. And I've had experience with DMT through ayahuasca, smoking DMT directly, and I've had pretty significant experiences with LSD and with psilocybin mushrooms. And they've always been, I've had some challenging trips, but I don't think I've ever had a bad trip. And most of them have been very valuable in terms of the mental reset. And I feel like you maybe you need to do maintenance. And there are a lot of people who incorporate this into their lives where it's like, once every month they have a weekend day, they're going to trip out solid on mushrooms, and that's their mental reset. Or maybe once every 3 months, or maybe it's once a week for you. But getting to the point of understanding a lot of these banned substances for just human optimization. I almost wanted to save this for a Good News Friday story, but there's another segment in here, Ketamine Clinic. Meanwhile, a ketamine-assisted therapy clinic is set to open in Bristol next week, where all the drug is already used for depression in clinics like the Ketamine Treatment Service in Oxford. It is not accompanied by psychotherapy. Rather, it is used to provide temporary relief from symptoms for people who have serious treatment-resistant depression. So far, unpublished research presented at a conference by Professor of Psychopharmacology at the University of Exeter, Celia Morgan, suggests ketamine accompanied by therapy has much longer-lasting effects. And as veterans, we're in a really good position to, I don't want to say lead the way, but be the legal battering ram in this. If a bunch of veterans say, we're doing retreats and we want to experiment with ketamine, I don't give a fuck if it's legal. Or, I got PTSD because of government. Fuck you, stay away from me. Do you really think government's going to come after us? And I think while these studies are very important, there's a whole other layer of fully implementing these psychedelic drugs, ketamine, psilocybin, MDMA, DMT, LSD, probably a handful of others that are relevant here. But even caffeine, even like nicotine, we don't really understand properly or fully, but especially with those psychedelics with the potential, aside from the studies that go, hey, this works here, there's a whole other layer of implementation of developing common practices. A lot of this is in experimenting with microdosing. Some studies, as we mentioned last week, suggest it might simply be psychosomatic rather than an actual effect. But I have done a handful, although I don't have enough. I need more regular mushrooms here to do a more consistent experiment with microdosing. But I've done some. I mean, I wouldn't call it micro because it's sort of like low moderate dose, but like just enough to feel it and not be tripping or out of my head. And it's been an interesting experiment, and it could be an interesting, I mean, it could be that, hey, humans live better when you take one psychedelic mushroom every morning. Like we think of it, coffee, that way for a lot of people, right? Most people, like, how do we think of caffeine? Well, life is better for some people if they start their day with a stimulant, and hot beverage with caffeine in it, that's the way to do it for them. Well, it might be that for another chunk of the population, life is better when you have a mushroom every morning. And whether that's the case or not, I mean, I would like to find out for myself, at least. Speaking of doing things for yourself, one last story in our mental health blog today from studyfinds.org. Singles pleasuring themselves more than ever multiple times a day during pandemic. Single Americans have taken sex into their own hands since the pandemic began. Literally, a new survey claims that the average single is masturbating 3 times per day amid all the isolation from COVID quarantines and lockdowns. The poll of 2005 single and unabashed Americans finds 3 in 10 are masturbating more than once a day. However, only 14% are doing it just once a day. Self-pleasure has seen an uptick since March 2020, with nearly half of respondents, 48%, admitting to doing it more frequently than ever before as a result of their isolation. These solo sessions have reportedly led to some jaw-dropping orgasms. Incredibly, a third, 34%, say they experienced their best orgasm ever during the pandemic. Joey Lee, it's true. Conducted by one poll on behalf of Lube Life, the survey aimed to see how COVID has affected the sex lives of singles. I guess. 26% also watching more porn during the pandemic. Now this is also an interesting shift. Nearly half the poll, 47%, say they used to be embarrassed about masturbating. Since the pandemic began, however, they've become a lot more open to it. So this new embrace likely stems from the fact that 39% of respondents have experienced a dry spell in their sex lives since March 2020. So don't feel bad if you're in this boat. Yeah, there's a lot of people, and it seems like a natural thing and a very wide-ranging trend here. Now, as for masturbation and human optimization for health, I don't really know how I fall on that. I don't fall on it at all. Let's put it that way. No, because I've gone through periods where just by circumstance, like, oh, it's been a few weeks. Okay, do I feel different? Not really. And then getting back into doing it regularly, and I'll leave it at that, or having regular orgasms, in some ways, yeah, there is a psychological boost. Is there a physiological one? I don't know, but what is the actual healthy balance guideline for masturbating frequency, aside from do it feels good? Then there are the advocates of no fap, right? That you should abstain from masturbation entirely and hold in that energy and not waste your time or get sucked into porn. There's a lot of good argument for that. So let's get comment or stupid shit people say on the internet, Steven, up on screen here for a minute. Check back in with the audience while I get a drink, because I'm a bad host.
You're muted, Steven. You're
There we go. Stupid shit I don't say on the internet. How about that? So I am not saying that you can't cuss in the chat. What I am saying is you're not allowed to cuss at each other. Specifically, you're not allowed to threaten each other. You're not allowed to be hateful to each other. You can't tell each other to go kill yourselves. I'm a mental health professional. That is 100% not okay. If you're telling each other to go jump off cliffs, there might be a conversation about you not being allowed to comment anymore. And speaking of comments, stupid shit people say. Let me see if I can find it. Think I'm going past it, but we're gonna show who the winner so far is. Adam, do you agree if someone's like being overly aggressive and they're fucking threatening, like they're telling people to like jump off cliffs and they're telling each other to fuck off, like?
Yeah. So no, we're the Ad versus Man comment section is not really a free speech forum. We are hosting a moderated conversation to be productive as part of the experience of Ad versus the Man. And whoever is co-hosting on whatever given day, we reserve the right for them to tell y'all to shut the fuck up when they feel like it, however they want to digitally.
I cannot find the winner as of right now, so I'll just read it because I took a picture of it. Steve Westcott, need more chemtrails for all our vitamin uptake. You were winning so far, sir. Y'all need to say dumber shit.
Woo! All right. Well, I mean, the sort of mental health stuff that we covered, I think it was a good, crowdsource. What other input do people have? Suggestions, tips on, smart cell phone use, anxiety management, and perhaps psychedelics or conscientious drug use overall.
There were a few, guys. If you want to say something, go ahead and just throw it up here, and I'll throw it up here for you. But I don't. There weren't a lot of. Some people think that porn is bad for the brain. I tend to. There's a lot of shit on masturbation. You started talking about touching yourself, and everyone started touching the keyboards.
Yeah, right.
But when it comes to the frequency, I like this one. Male babies don't just release your jizz. He had some funny ones. I'll throw this one back up. But jumping Christ 3 times a day. How do you go to the grocery store? There was some stuff about ketamine. Honestly, when it comes to therapies and stuff, I really just believe that you should layer. So, I mess around with CBD and Delta 8 and Delta 9, and I also do acupuncture and therapy, and exercise, and just also thinking about how you can better handle situations that you've put yourself in the past, right? So, unfortunately, I've killed people. It is not something that I like to brag about, but it's a reality of my life. So, would I do it again? Under the right circumstances, yes. But here's the deal. I will never take another human being's life on behalf of a government again. I will never take a human being's life that is not being aggressive to deadly force levels with me or somebody else in my immediate vicinity. I'll tell you this. If somebody's robbing a gas station at gunpoint, he's threatening to kill people, and you shoot him, I hate to think about that, but that's a good shoot. If he's actively hurting people, that's a good shoot. Now, if he shoots somebody and then 28 years later you electrocute him to death, you're an asshole. You're a piece of shit, because at that moment in time, he's not being aggressive to deadly force levels. And you're going after a man at that very moment in time that is not hurting you. You're a bastard. But
all right, hey Steven, let's get on to our COVID block before we got our guest coming on in just a few minutes. And we will check in with the audience, of course, during that, and encourage you to keep sharing your tips if there wasn't something that we've covered about how you manage your stress and anxiety and smartphone use and everything in the age of COVID. So with that, let's give people some misleading medical advice. So, according to Blaze Media, theblaze.com, NBC News says if you go to the gym, you should wear a face mask in the shower. That's right. NBC News reported on a guidance from the CDC and CDC for Americans to wear masks and to practice social distancing in gyms. The CDC highlighted a study of a gym in Chicago last summer. The study focused on 81 people who exercised at the gym facility. The study found COVID-19 cases were identified in 68% of the gym attendees. Later examination would have found, I don't know how many of those false positives. Okay, but yeah, if you go to the gym, wear a mask in the shower. Right. If I have to explain the problems with that to you, just go ahead and wear your mask in the shower. Virus tolls similar despite governor's contrasting actions. This is from apnews.com. And this is a fun I told you so. Because pretty early on in this pandemic, I said, hey, you're going to see different responses in different areas from state to state and country to country. And it's going to reveal COVID doesn't care about your policy. Nearly a year after Governor Gavin Newsom of California ordered the nation's first statewide shutdown because of coronavirus, masks remain mandated, indoor dining and other activities are significantly limited, and Disneyland remains closed. By contrast, Florida has no statewide restrictions. Republican Governor Ron DeSantis has prohibited municipalities from fining people who refuse to wear masks, and Disney World has been open since July. Despite their different approaches, California and Florida have experienced almost identical outcomes in COVID-19 case rates. Now, it almost doesn't matter if you look at this honestly and go, yeah, for the most part, COVID really doesn't care about your policies. But the advocates of the lockdowns will forever be able to come up with excuses for this. Well, if Florida had done what California did, their cases would have been even lower, and a tiny fraction would have been 10 times as much if or it's 10 times what it was. And it's just because Floridians have such strong immune systems, or some other excuse that make them different from California. So this is going to be something we're going to keep looking at, and we're going to keep coming back to. How are they scaring us? Okay, so we have some vaccine headlines. First, how they are scaring us. Bloomberg has this headline from MSN.com. Fauci says Trump could end Republicans' vaccine hesitancy. Why would you want to do that? Because that's a big risk. Reluctance among Republicans to receive a vaccine is one of the biggest risks to coronavirus control efforts. President Joe Biden's chief medical advisor said, although one GOP governor said attitudes may change. Fauci said he'd like to see former President Trump come out and publicly urge his supporters to get the vaccine. I wish he would, he said on Fox News Sunday. He has an incredible influence over people in the Republican Party. It would really be a game changer if he did. And it is so interesting how this has split, and it's really because of Trump and the statements at the beginning. I mean, I don't think there's a natural split here where, I mean, yes, in a sense, liberals, people on the left might be more likely to go along with collective health action than people on the right, but that doesn't, I don't think that accounts for the entire split on this. So according to the poll here that they're citing, 41% of people who identify as Republicans and 49% of GOP-leaning men, so they have no plans to get one of the 3 federally approved coronavirus vaccines. Among Democrat-leaning men, only 6% said the same. That's a huge gap. 6% versus 49%. That's GOP-leaning men versus Democrat-leaning men. Separately, another poll found 56% of Republicans either wanted to wait and see before getting a vaccine, basic common sense, or said they were likely never to get one. Only 23% of Democrats felt the same way. As Fauci said, I just don't get it. We've got to disassociate political persuasion from common sense, no-brainer public health things. Yeah, and it's this weird intellectual bullying. I don't think Fauci's comments are really going to change this. But there are plenty of reasons to be skeptical about the vaccine, as some of our other headlines show. But first, I'll bet you've been wondering, hey, how come we haven't figured out a standard treatment for this thing yet? Well, we have this headline: COVID treatments have improved, but more rigorous study trials needed. Yeah, and this is USAtoday.com in-depth news, and again, links you can find them at t.me/Adam versus the man if you really want to get into this. But the fact that we don't have like a sense of what treatments work, of just of everything that we have, okay, so the subtitle here is care for people infected by the coronavirus has improved, but in the past 12 months, it's been largely trial and error that's led to missed opportunities to ease suffering. Yeah, no shit. I mean, it should have been like immediate, like within weeks. If they were coalescing data properly from around the world, we'd have pretty obvious best practices of what works and what doesn't. And if that were the case, they wouldn't have gotten away with the whole fiasco with ventilators. Ventilators, heavily overused, were the flagship thing that we all need. And Governor Cuomo is going to save us because he's going to get a bunch for New York. And you go, wait a second. And then this is a tragedy of this whole pandemic that is yet to be fully accounted for. But a lot of people were put on ventilators in circumstances where it made their experience in their health a lot worse and may have killed them. We've covered some stories that have been getting at that. I think on that one count, we have yet to see the decisive story, but it's coming. Yeah, trust me, that one's coming. The Jerusalem Post, jpost.com, Israeli anti-vaxxers submit ethics complaint to ICC despite the suit's claims of severe side effects and deaths allegedly related to the vaccine. Only about 0.25%, a quarter of a percent of Israelis who received the vaccine experienced any side effects. Well, gee, that's about how many died from COVID, right? All right. Axios.com, vaccine brawl riles House. Uncertainty about why only 75% of the House is confirmed as vaccinated against the coronavirus is fueling a debate about whether the chamber can return to its normal rules of operation. Between the lines, the other 25% of members have either refused to get the vaccine, have not reported getting it at home, or avoiding it because of medical conditions. Until the Office of Attending Physician is clear about this, it can't make recommendations, quote, regarding the modification or relaxation of existing social distancing guidelines. Oh, godly medical personnel, why can't you tell us what to do? Congress has its own supply of the coronavirus vaccine. Of course, while it's not certain which party is most to blame for any vaccine hesitancy, the phenomenon is higher among white Republicans than any other Democratic group, as Axios has reported. I won't be taking it, quote, the survival rate is too high for me to want it, 25-year-old Rep. Madison Cawthorn, Republican from North Carolina, told Axios in December. Why it matters: multiple waves of voting meant to ensure social distancing inside the House chamber are slowing a full legislative schedule. Oh no, it's also giving power to disruptors like Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene from Georgia, who's used her procedural move to further drag out the process. Votes can take more than 3 times longer than pre-pandemic times. So, of course, yeah, let's get everybody vaccinated so we can go back to screwing over the American people more consistently. And I have to imagine that for all these members of Congress, they not only have special access to the vaccine, but they also have access to doctors that will falsify documents for them. And, whoops, oh, yeah, or they'll, hey, doc, I don't want this vaccine, but I want you to say that I got it, so you're going to squirt it into the floor. Whoops, yes, got my shot in private. There are other people resisting this, according to the Associated Press. U.S. prison guards refusing vaccine despite COVID-19 outbreaks. That's right. A Florida correctional officer polled his colleagues earlier this year in a private Facebook, will you take the COVID-19 vaccine if offered? The answer for more than half, hell no. Only 40 of the 475 respondents said yes. In Massachusetts, more than half of the people employed by the Department of Correction declined to be immunized. No, getting the vaccine is not immunization. You're not immune. These vaccines aren't even that good that they call them immunity. Okay. In Rhode Island, prison staff have refused the vaccine at higher rates than the incarcerated, according to medical director Dr. Justin Burke. And in Iowa, early polling among employees showed a little more than half of the staff said they'd get vaccinated. This is huge. This is huge. These are your guinea pigs refusing to be guinea pigs. Now, let's go around the world for a minute, shall we? First, on the vaccine, Norway, this from Bloomberg via MSN, Norway reports 3 blood clot cases after AstraZeneca shot. Yeah. Norway, among countries that have suspended the use of AstraZeneca PLC's COVID-19 vaccine, said 3 people who received its shot are being treated for severe blood clots and cerebral hemorrhages, but that it's too soon to say if there was a connection. Now, I don't mean to fearmonger about the vaccine, but that's what's being pushed by the authorities for the profit of their sponsors right now. So that's what needs to be checked. But I'm not here to say, like, be afraid. Like, we've got these, and for most people, it's like you've got these 2 squishy little threats of the vaccine side effect or the actual COVID. And it's like, like that congresswoman said, COVID sounds better than the vaccine right now. And if they were, and the other thing is, at least that should motivate you to wait. I'm not saying don't ever get the vaccine. If you have a particular reason, if you've done your research on the one that you're getting, by all means, go for it. But if you don't, why not wait until at least we know? Because even if you do get the, even if you do get the vaccine, like, you don't know that it's going to be effective according to the research today, and you don't even know that the research is accurate. They have been so eager to report and over-report COVID deaths and hospitalizations and under-report the side effects from the vaccine. So our guest is backstage. We're going to get to him in just a couple minutes and skim through the rest of these COVID headlines. Exclusive regular booster vaccines are the future in battle with COVID-19 virus, top genome expert says. Of course, why not keep your customers hooked up? Also about the AstraZeneca vaccine from Reuters, Ireland temporarily suspends AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine. Netherlands, this is from The Guardian, joins Ireland in vaccine suspension over blood clot concerns. The Guardian from MSN, COVID is taking over. Brazil plunges into deadliest chapter of its epidemic. Yeah, right. Okay. At least their government is catching up with the hoax. And also from The Guardian, third COVID wave sweeps across the European Union and forces new restrictions. Because the old restrictions worked so well, we're going to do it again. Right. Bloomberg Quint, Italians flock to parks, rush to get haircut before new lockdown. Reuters, German COVID cases could revisit December peak in April. So yeah, get ready for another wave of fear and bullshit in Europe. From AFP by Yahoo, Merkel party suffers heavy losses in German state polls. This under, German Chancellor Angela Merkel's conservatives suffered heavy losses in 2 key regional elections Sunday as voters punished the party for a series of pandemic setbacks and a face mask procurement scandal. Oh, governments in Germany are corrupt too? Yeah. From Herald Mail Media, Granny shouldn't be out here maskless spring breakers. Flout Florida's South Beach COVID-19 rules. Yep. But meanwhile, they're not all as not all as, I don't know what's the term. Well, let's just say Miami Beach police pepper spray unruly spring breakers, arrest 100 as authorities fear COVID-19 surge. Yeah, I'm sure they're really afraid. We're so afraid of COVID-19 that we're going to go out and pepper spray people. Yeah. When police tried to clear the crowds away from a packed Miami Beach roadway on Friday night, one teenager refused to give any ground and allegedly pushed an officer. Allegedly, like you wouldn't have video of that. As hundreds of bystanders, many without masks, gathered for a closer look, officers responded with pepper spray and pepper balls because they care about your health. Officials said the incident ended with at least 2 arrests and 2 police officers taken to the hospital, probably because of pepper spray blowback, right? Las Vegas sees big crowds as capacity limits set to ease. This from Review Journal, Las Vegas Review Journal at reviewjournal.com. By the way, that means we can go back and do man on the street videos in Vegas. There's no way we can do them in California right now. But Las Vegas, let's go back to Vegas. If you want to make this happen, support us on Patreon. We'll get back out there. We'll get to doing man on the street videos, or come out here and volunteer. All right. Let's see. All right, just 3 more stories before we get to our guest. Infowars.com. 65-year-old Texas woman tackled, arrested for refusing to wear a mask a day after Abbott lifted mandate. Yeah. This is crazy story. 10.medium.com, the rise of COVID-19 temperature scanners that can also capture and store your face. Yeah, just by walking by it and briefly glancing at the screen, I likely gave the temp tablet all it needed to recognize me. Makes you want to wear a mask in public, doesn't it? Finally, the Jerusalem Post, can artificial intelligence predict whether someone will die from COVID? An artificial intelligence algorithm developed by the University of Copenhagen managed to predict with up to 90% accuracy whether someone undiagnosed is at risk of dying from COVID-19. And if you need AI to tell you how to manage your COVID-19 risk, maybe you should just go take a shower with your mask on. And that's all the misleading medical advice we have for today. All right, ladies and gentlemen, our guest today is Brandon Martinez, one of the founders of altright.com, which we'll get to him about his role in it. This is the one whose masthead lists only Richard Spencer as the board of directors. That's infamous alt-right activist, the Nazi everybody wants to punch. And what we hear from our friends who arranged for this interview is that Brandon Martinez is looking to move in a more libertarian direction. So without further ado, Brandon, welcome to the show, sir.
Thanks for having me, sir. I'm actually, by the way, I have nothing to do with Richard Spencer. He has a different website.
So what is the website that, tell us about yours, because I was told it was altright.com.
Yeah, that's his website. It's alt-right without the dash. So you see it's slightly different.
Oh, excuse me. All right. So tell us your role in alt-right.com.
Well, it's I've run it for 4 years now. It's just like a blog that I host, and I post my videos and live streams. And it's just to get my message out for white self-determination.
So tell us about your personal history and what got you into this in the first place.
Kind of like the 9/11 attacks brought me into the alt media, and I was looking at Alex Jones, I was looking at conspiracy stuff, I was looking at David Icke, and then I looked at Zionism because they were involved in 9/11, and so I started to investigate Zionism, and that brought me to the alt-right, and I've been focused on that for 10 years now. I got a book called Grand Deceptions, which goes into that, and I think it's the most important issue today.
Why that? What is most compelling?
Because they're the most powerful group in America today. As you know, they started the war in Iraq. They were behind the war on terror. They are behind all these foreign policy blunders that you see today, the Israeli lobby, right? And so these are the people in charge. These are the people in charge of the banking system. They're in charge of the media. They're in charge of politics. Donald Trump or Joe Biden, doesn't matter who's in power. These people run the show. And so not talking about them, basically, you're ignoring the elephant in the room. Like, how can you talk about politics and not bring up Zionism or Jewish power when these are the people who have the most political power, financial power, media power to push their agenda? You know, every American president bows to Israel. Every American president cannot speak against Israel, cannot speak against the Zionist lobby, or they're gone. They're run out of office. So to ignore that is effectively to run cover for these people who are running our society into the ground. What was it, $2 trillion spent on these wars in the Middle East for the exclusive benefit of one ethnic group, Jews in Israel in the Middle East. So
hold on, I gotta interrupt just to make sure that I'm understanding your use of the terminology, because you seem to be using Jew kind of, and I don't mean to say that you're using it wrong, but the word has multiple meanings, right? You say the Zionist Jews versus the Jews versus the ethnic group. How do you differentiate between those terms and what you just said, and how do you use that?
Well, I don't differentiate because Israel calls itself the Jewish state, and it puts a Star of David on the flag. It makes its immigration policy Jews only. Effectively, to get into Israel, you have to be Jewish. And so Israel represents, or as acting as a representative of Jews. Whether some Jews don't agree with that, that's their issue
Okay,
to
so
take up
how
with the elite Jews in power.
So how do you differentiate, or do you differentiate, someone like me? Because my I'm half German, half Jewish, and on my Jewish side, my grandparents left Europe before World War II to avoid it, and were not religious and pretended to be Presbyterian in Montreal in order to blend in there. And then my mom, didn't even know about this until she was an adult. There was, a complete separation in my lineage, where I can say I have half the genetics, but literally no connection with any religious or Jewish organizations whatsoever. But I saw, what identified as ethnically at least 50% Jewish.
Well, yes, there are Jews that are extremely tied into the system, or tied into their Judaism, or tied into Zionism. There's different types of Jews. There's even some Jews that are against Zionism. However, the thing is that my belief is that Jews as a group will always work against whites, because they believe whites are a threat or a competitor to them. So you can see, like, Kevin McDonald wrote a book, Culture of Critique, where he goes into, like, the founders of the Frankfurt School, and they were all Jewish, and they even said that their motivation for promoting things like feminism and LGBT and breaking up the nuclear family and all these left-wing ideas was because they were Jewish. Like, they do these things they don't just happen to be Jews. They do these things because they're Jewish, and they view these things as a threat to them as Jews. So they see, like, a collectivized white majority as a threat to Jews as a minority. So you see they behave differently when they're a minority and when they're a majority. When they're a minority, they support left-wing causes, they support immigration, they support Black people, whether it's BLM or the Civil Rights Movement, because they're trying to kind of coordinate themselves within this system. They feel that the majority could eventually turn on them, like they did in different societies in Europe. And so if they're able to break down the ethnic bonds of the majority ethnic group, that being whites and Christians, then they can more easily dominate, right? If they have no competitors who have collectivized themselves against them, they're the most tribal group in the world. And so they can easily control things, can easily move up the ranks of power. And so this is what they do. So while not all Jews are involved in those actions, I would agree with that. But
okay, so let me challenge
as a group, 1 second, as a group, they act collectively in the interests of Jews, and they act in the name of other Jews.
Or at least it's the small subset that are actively engaged in what you're doing. But then there's one other challenge here, that I have to bring, because you start with these sort of broad appeal problems in the world. Like if you're anti-war, you say, well, look, it's Zionists behind war. So if you're anti-war, you have to be anti-Zionist. And there's an interesting, legitimate connection there, and compelling argument to that. And a lot of great activists have done a lot of work to make that connection. I'm sure you're familiar with the work of former Congresswoman Cynthia McKinney, Green Party presidential nominee. But she doesn't, make it about Jews or about the ethnic motivation there. And I would, as much as it is about Zionism in the state of Israel being a criminal state. And I think it is unavoidable. I mean, I will agree with you that there is a racially and religiously, identity based state that is a criminal government like that. But hey, by my standards, pretty much every government in the world is criminal. So that's not saying, or differentiating it by much. But my challenge to you then is, if you can identify this one evil around this group of people that have this, ethnic connection, how do you know that the actual street, and if you're saying they're operating behind the scenes, like at the highest level, how do you know that the ones behind the scenes aren't Gentiles using the Jews as part of the bigger scam? As this, or maybe it's Xi Jinping who's really secretly controlling the government of Israel through the Chinese intelligence apparatus, because and by placing this ethnically based motivation on this whole thing, you might be missing the core of the evil itself that you're trying to pursue, if you're honestly trying to pursue that evil.
Because it's not just a case of the wars. Wars in the Middle East are one aspect of the Zionist side of this elite. And then you have the globalist side. So there's the Zionists who want to bring America into wars to topple all of these governments so they can rule the Middle East. Then there's these globalist Jews like George Soros, Haim Saban, and others who push open borders immigration into the West. So their ideas are a bit different. The Zionists want a Jewish state in the Middle East and to make that into the world superpower. And the globalist Jews like Soros and his friends are trying to undermine the white race. So you can see that these types of Jews promote unlimited refugees and immigration into all Western countries. They're at the forefront of that agenda. You can find videos of leaders of Jewish organizations saying, we're promoting immigration. We want to work with minorities against white nationalism. Bernie Sanders, when he ran for president, he said he declared war on white nationalism. The groups like the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, their entire purpose is to attack white nationalists, basically, and anti-Semites. And so it's not just a case of wars. They also undermine us in all kinds of other ways. And so it cannot just be a case of Zionism or Zionist belligerence. There's also an ethnic component to this. It's not like this agenda can be delineated with the Chinese and these other groups. Like if you can look at the different groups you're allowed to criticize in society, which ones can you criticize and which ones can't you criticize? Jews have a very special protection. Any prominent person who criticizes Jews is run out of their career.
I don't know. I think it's harder to criticize a transgender person today, and they're not running the show.
They're jumping on the victim gravy train. Black people, minorities, transgenders, but Jews. If a politician criticizes Jews, for example, he's done. He's finished. His career is over. And Cynthia McKinney even said that. She said that if you didn't support Israel, you're run out of the Congress.
Well, she said Israel, not Jews.
But it's Jews who are implementing that policy in America. Without the 6 million Jews in America to run all these lobby groups, Israel has no power over America. It's that Jewish money in America that is forcing America into these situations. And so
do you think there is something? Do you think there is something about being Jewish that drives this phenomena, that is fundamentally in the genetics of being Jewish, that makes you want to commit large-scale evil on behalf of protecting your own genetics, or that this is just, what is it that drives this phenomenon? Is it something about the race, or is it just an historical quirk that happens to be associated with this ethnic group right now?
Well, I can't really point to some gene in Jews that makes them do these things, but if you look at their religion and their culture, it does promote the idea that Jews are the chosen people, that they will eventually rule the world. It says things like
Is that unique among religions?
no, but they're the most powerful ethnic group in the world. So if Muslims had the power of Jews, I think we'd probably be in a bad situation in terms of Islam controlling us, but they don't. And so Jews believe that,
Hold on,
in
that's
the
kind
in
of
the end
subjective.
times.
I want to tell you, I want to say the Jews as a whole, as an ethnic group, are more powerful than the Chinese. There are a lot.
Yes, they are, because Jews are the ones running our media, our banking and financial system. It's not the Chinese. Not in China. In China, maybe the Chinese are more powerful than Jews, but in America and Canada and in Europe, Jews are more powerful than the Chinese. You can criticize the Chinese, but you can't criticize Jews or Israel. And that tells us something about who runs our society, right?
Well, even that could be a diversion. But Stephen McClure, our co-host, wants to ask, are you Christian?
I was raised Christian. I'm not a practicing Christian. I do respect the values of Catholicism, and I would say they probably undergird some of what I believe today.
Okay, so there's and by the way, any other comments or questions from the audience, Stephen will be getting them up in the second half of our interview here. But Brandon, so as a libertarian, I see that the fundamental problem or source of injustice in the world is a lack of a consistent ethical standard that libertarianism provides, right? I mean, you're familiar with self-ownership, the non-aggression principle, right? These basic.
Yeah, I was a libertarian for maybe a year or so, so I'm familiar with your work too as well. I've seen your videos.
All right. Well, thank you. So then, going from when I look at the source of injustices in the world, whether it comes from a certain ethnic group or not, and I don't know if I don't pretend to be ignoring this. Like I know the history of the USS Liberty. I know about AIPAC. I know about the unique evils of the state of Israel, of the government of Israel. But to me, there seems a more fundamental problem, in that focusing on that seems to be missing an opportunity to actually move past. Even if that narrative is entirely true, how do we move past it? It's not by blaming that group or focusing on those victimizers, even if they were all non-Jewish ethnic groups that were pulling the strings behind the scenes. Maybe it would be the broader endorsement by society that makes this whole system possible. No.
Yes, I believe though that, like, it's not, there are non-Jews that are also involved. Like, it's not 100% Jewish, and people will point to, like, the president or the vice president is not Jewish. But if you look at the Biden administration, I looked up the makeup of it. I think 18 out of the top 50 are Jewish, 36%, and Jews are only 2% of the U.S. population. They're like hundreds of times overrepresented in these positions of power. I believe the moral breakdown, Jews have effectively an in-group morality where they will not try to harm their own group, and they have laws against that in their religious texts, but they treat Gentiles separately, differently. Gentiles are seen as lesser, as even subhumans, according to the extremist Chabad Lubavitch Jews. And so they kind of don't have any empathy for Gentiles. And you can see that in their actions. Look at how they kill Palestinians. Look at how they were filming the 9/11 attacks and laughing about it, those 5 dancing Israelis. They attacked the Liberty. They're willing to kill and do whatever it takes to accomplish their goals in the world. And my focus on them is because of their disproportionate power. If it was some other group that had this disproportionate power, I'd probably be talking about them. But it is Jews who have this power. And it's not just the wars in the Middle East. Like I said, there is an anti-white element to this whole culture. I mean, you can see it today. Can you see that the media is anti-white? These corporations are pushing courses on their employees about how to be less white. You have
quick sidebar then on that. I want to get to the bigger ideological issues here, if you don't mind. Are Jews white, and what do you define as white?
White is of European descent, so stretching to Russia, to Southern Europe, to Eastern and Northern Europe.
Not European Jews.
Jews. Look, there's a debate about whether there's some Jews that are not white, that are from the Middle East, like the Mizrahi Jews. There's some Ethiopian Jews. The ones from Europe, I don't know the percentage. They look white, and maybe they fit within that the genetics. Maybe they fit. Some of them fit within the European gene pool. However, they don't identify with whites. You can see Jews saying like, we're not white. Like they play this game where they pretend to be white sometimes when they want to get benefits or they want to fit in with whites. But then other times they say, we're not white, we're Jewish, we're with the minorities. You can see that play out many times. Jews have written articles saying that they're not white. So it depends what benefits them at the time. And so I would just say I would exclude them from whatever movement I'm promoting, because they've shown to be themselves to be an enemy of white nationalism, but they want their own nationalism in Israel, obviously.
So what did it mean to you to be a libertarian, and how did you get away from that?
Well, I was kind of a libertarian for maybe like a year. I read some books like, Larkin Rose. I read his book, The Dangerous Superstition. And I was kind of flirting with those ideas for a while, but I just found that it was effectively no threat to the system. So what the system promotes is radical individualism. They want us to be atomized, pursuing pleasures, hedonistic, watching porn, doing drugs. They don't want us to form a collective unit. They promote the other groups to do that, whether it's Black Lives Matter or these non-white racial groups. They promote Jews doing that, collectivizing. But when whites do it, they attack it. They call it white supremacy. They call it racism. And so if we're pursuing libertarianism, we're ultimately not a collective. We are just individuals pursuing freedom. And I view this as nothing more than a distraction.
There's definitely a couple things I got to address there, because that's a misunderstanding of libertarianism. Libertarianism doesn't say you can't have collectives. It says just that whatever collectives you have must be voluntary and in line and not violating libertarian ethics. And when you look at you say they want us to be atomized, except for these groups they want together. Well, they want nationalization. Do they want whites to be atomized? There are plenty of things like within, whiteness. Whiteness is if you say it's anybody of that huge swath of the earth, then why do we have to come together in that giant group? Like, you don't hear, the same problem with sort of Asians in Asia forming Asian Chinese groups, like white American groups, but we have we have plenty of celebrations of ethnic heritage that are subsets of whiteness. So I would also disagree that they're calling they don't call the St. Patrick's Day parade white supremacist organizing. I mean,
but when you make it, when you
doing that.
Well, maybe they are. They're trying to say that Swedish people don't exist now, and they're putting out ads. These big airlines are putting out ads saying there's no such thing as Swedish and Swedish culture. And so they are attacking Europeans. This is very obvious. They're doing it in the media. They're doing it in academia. They're trying to deconstruct the white race as a whole. And this is all part of this push to basically undermine white people, make us into a minority. They're doing so rapidly in all the big cities, whether it's Toronto, Los Angeles, New York City, Paris, London. All these big cities are majority non-white now. And they're extending that pattern across the white world. And so they are vehemently opposed to whites collectivizing. The FBI director recently said he's declared white nationalism a national emergency. Biden himself has declared that it's a priority of his administration to undermine white nationalists. Why are they so afraid of it?
If Jewish nationalism is bad, even if it's leading to a deliberate, and I see that this theory has merit. It's a legitimate, like if you say hey, it really is a Jewish conspiracy running the world, it would make sense that they would be manipulating the population in this way, that they would want not to be a competing singular dominant ethnic group if they think Europeans have been that, right? But if Jewish nationalism is bad because it leads people to see out groups as bad and commit crimes against people who aren't part of their in group, isn't white nationalism just like answering one evil with a greater evil?
Well, I didn't say Jewish nationalism is bad, but Jewish nationalism is controlling our government. So they're making our government support
imperialism. Jewish imperialist nationalism is bad. We can have white nationalism without the imperialism, and then it's good.
Well, yes, I'm for separatism, so I don't want to imperialize or harm or kill these other groups. I just want to separate from them and form a white collective, which the government media system won't allow white people to do. They will allow. I saw a story recently where black people in Georgia bought 90 acres of land and they're forming a black community, and they're praised in the media for their efforts of self-determination. But if white people did that, they'd send in the FBI to break it up. Now, why are they so afraid of white people forming a collective and a community?
You don't think you have that fundamental freedom today? Hold on. Our co-host, Stephen McClure, wants to jump in here. Let's go let Stephen get up on stage. But, yeah, I mean, like, why can't you form a voluntary collective? I mean, if there was a desire, if there was a market for, white ethnic communities, you could form them without even advertising it as such. And I think I would suggest like that they do exist in certain pockets in certain ways. There are areas of the country that are rural communities. They're not like officially all white or all any particular ethnicity, but there is a sort of natural ability that exists in America for people already to congregate along racial lines.
Yes, but it's as soon like what they're doing is they see those white areas and they're trying to move non-whites into those areas with low-income housing. They have refugee resettlement programs to push refugees into those towns. So any town there or city that is too white, they will try to break it up. They will try to diversify it. And diversity is just a code word for less white people, right? They say, there's too many white people in this industry. We need diversity, which means less white people. But they don't say that about the NBA, which is 70% black, right? So they will not allow white people to collectivize in that way. There was a guy who tried to do that, by the way. His name was Craig Cobb, and he was buying up houses in this tiny town called Leith, and they eventually drove him out of that town. So white people meet stiff resistance when they do try to collectivize, and it's only whites who meet this resistance. Blacks are allowed to do it, Jews are allowed to do it, and they have their own state. But white people are not. Now, why is that? Why the double standard? Why is the media so hostile to white people?
Well, then why would you say white people have, in America, by almost every metric, higher standard of living than other ethnic groups?
No, they're actually below Asians, they're below Indians, and they're below Jews. So whites are not the highest earning ethnic group.
Middle class, then, ethnically?
Well, most white people are middle class.
So you don't. Well, in that case, and a lot of people would include Jews with whites in that demographic analysis. But you don't think compared to? I mean, you're talking about compared to blacks, Hispanics, that those would be in a lower average socioeconomic status in the United States, and that white people being sort of above them, and that would be more significant than Indians, Asians, or Jews as relatively small minorities.
But Jews are one of the wealthiest ethnic groups in America, and they're allowed to be tribal and to form collectives. But whites who have a lower socioeconomic status than Jews or Indians and others, and Asians, are not allowed. Why is it only the whites that are not allowed? You have Asian organizations, for example.
Okay, Stephen, were you going to jump up here? Is Stephen, our co-host, going to get on stage? I think he had some questions he wanted to share for himself or the audience there. All right, there he is.
Hey,
Steven.
First of all, Brandon, you have a website. Can people comment on your website and send you chats and shit?
Yeah, I run they can comment on the site, and better is to comment on my Telegram. So I have a Telegram at Martinez Perspective where I do most of my stuff today. My videos and BitChute and Odyssey, I also have a video channel. I don't know if you see my videos. I do like these Omegle debates with leftists and BLM supporters and feminists and stuff. Those are the I
Okay.
assume those were the videos that people were talking about.
So real quick, can you do us a favor? I wanted to make sure they could chat because I want them to be able to voice their opinions.
Yeah.
Jim Freedom, if you look on your StreamYard, on the private chat, he needs you to type your email address, not your email, but your website address and your Telegram, and he'll share that so people can see you, and we can throw that up so people know where you're at. All right, so we got the Telegram. I see that. And then the website, please. Cool. All right, so I got a question for you. You're a white person, right? You have a Spanish last name, but you're claiming white identity. Why is it that everybody who ever talks about making communities, and I'm gonna back up a second. You're not true. What you said about the 90 acres in Georgia is not true. It was not. Hi.
In what way?
What?
They were blacks who bought up a bunch of land and said, "This is a blacks only zone. We're trying to get away from the racist white cops."
No, not true.
Then what is it?
They were Klan members. They were Klan members.
What are you talking about? Look up black families buy up land. I believe it was Georgia. I could be mistaken, but
no, it is Georgia. It is Georgia. They were Klan members. The only ethno-state to ever be attempted in Georgia in the last 28 years were white people.
No, Stephen, you must have Stephen, I got to back up Brandon on this, but you must have missed this story. This was relatively recent, like in the last year. There was a group that started. Now, I don't know the details. I don't know how exclusive or exclusionary there were, but there was a black community created as a homesteading community. I'm pretty sure it was Georgia. And part of the motivation was to get away from racism and white cops.
Was it Augusta?
I don't remember what city.
So
if it was just south of Augusta, they don't ban white people because I've been there and bought peaches and shit.
Oh, I'm not. Yeah, so it's not. Yeah, but they're probably not banning white people. I don't think
they said no white.
Yeah, but
maybe for living there.
But they're all black families. There's no whites involved in their little community, and I highly doubt they would allow whites in there.
Here it is. This is September. Hold on. I've got the story. Give me a second, guys. This is CNN.com, September 12, 2020. 97 families by nearly. Now it's off my screen. It's loading. Freedom Black Cooperative Toomsboro is the link. But it was 19 families buy nearly 97 acres of land in Georgia to create a city safe for black people. Welcome to freedom, exclaims real estate agent Ashley Scott as she surveys the nearly 97 acres of land that she and a group of 19 black families purchased in August. And you guys can go back. I'll skim this to see if there's any. I don't think they're exclusive in like who can go there, but they are saying that this is a black community set up to be safe for black people.
Imagine if it was whites doing that. Imagine the ire of the media. Imagine the ire of the media. Whites only community, racist.
You're talking about Tombstone, and you're forgetting about Forsyth. I live in Georgia. I was born here. I've lived here.
Show me a KKK.
Talking about Tombstone, and I've been to Tombstone because I read about it, and I was like, oh, let's go and see. Because what I was told was what you're saying. They're not going to let white people in. You show up and they go, hey, how are you? Okay, I'm just wondering what this place is. And they were cool and they were polite and they've got a church and their pastor's cool as shit. And you go in and they've got a few little shops and anybody can go in, anybody can buy anything. And there's property for sale right next door. And they don't say no crackers. But the FBI had to get involved in the early 2000s and tell white people in Forsyth, Georgia, Forsyth County, Georgia, Alpharetta, Cummings, that area, you can't burn down the houses of black people. So here's my question to you. Why is it every time I hear anything like this, it is always race-based. It's never culture-based. It's never religious-based. It's never anything but I want people that look like me because Grandpa looked like me.
Well, there
Steve,
have been.
let me rephrase the question a little bit for you, Brandon, kind of add my take, because I would ask a similar question here. So, like, when there's a double standard, you say black people organize in a community like this, it's kind of celebrated, whereas,
Yeah.
you know, if white people were to do something like this, it would be ridiculed. And in a sense, it should be, because black people in cities in America should have a legitimate reason to feel unsafe. White people,
Really?
you know, for everything you want to say about white people being disadvantaged for whatever reason in the United States, it's never really, you don't feel safe on the street in America as a white person, and you need to create a city. Hold on, you need to create I'll give you a chance to respond to all this. There are there are those immediate legitimate reasons. Now, I'm creating a community here in Gardenia, and I'm part of a larger community here in Juniper Wood Ranch, where we want this is a safe space for people who want to get away from government, and it doesn't matter what color you are. And so this is the other problem with it, is that, and I would almost have a problem with a black community doing this and saying we're doing it because we're black, if there wasn't a distinct police state challenge that black people face in modern American cities. But if they said, hey, we're going to exclude you because you're only 10% black, or, you know, even them, I would criticize that black community, saying we're creating a safe space for black people outside of a city. You should be creating a safe space for people who want to get away from the police state and make a commitment to those principles, because you can have a white on black police state, you can have white on white and black on black police states, and creating a community of black people in and of itself doesn't solve that problem. Create a community of black people committed to not contributing to the evil of the police state, that addresses that problem. So why?
You're saying, so you're saying
that.
So you're saying that blacks have a legit reason to segregate from whites?
I'm saying in the current general paradigm in America, there's more accepted motivation for that. I'm not saying it's entirely
it's
right,
it's entirely manufactured. But you say they're afraid of whom? 90% of blacks are killed by other blacks every year. The inner cities, it's black gangsters gunning each other down. If you look at the crime statistics, it's gone up almost like over 100% in a lot of these big cities, like New York, 2020, 96% of homicides by blacks, and whites are 33%.
So that's
St. Louis.
The black on black and white on white violence is true, but it's just a matter of proximity.
Who are they afraid of?
And there's a unique threat
white
from
cops.
the police state.
Hang on, let me answer your question.
Okay.
You said, look, white people get killed by police. I think the numbers in 2019, 23 whites were killed by cops and were unarmed, and 13 blacks. Now, more blacks are killed by cops in general because more blacks are committing crime, committing armed robbery, committing homicide, and therefore
that's in the bias of the charging.
They're pulling guns on cops. I just saw a video of a woman in Nashville. A lot of blacks, this is what they do. They don't want to go to jail, and when they get pulled over, they get violent. And this woman pulled a gun out because she had drugs, and she decided she was going to die that day over some, drug paraphernalia charge. So blacks are very impulsive in this sense. They will confront the police. They're willing to die. They're willing to die in the moment to avoid going to jail. And they're far more aggressive than white people or Asians in that respect. If you look at the crimes,
I think that in and of itself is an inappropriate racial attribution. I think
the crime statistics prove.
First, you have to trust government with crime statistics, and you have to hold constant the circumstantial racism.
So the government is pro-black though, man. Like the American government is pandering to black people, but you're acting like they're anti-black. The cops know that they will get more opprobrium from the media and the system if they kill a black person than a white person. The media doesn't even talk about the white people killed by cops. There was a white woman named Autumn Steele from Iowa was killed by a black cop in 2015. She was unarmed. Nobody's heard her name, and that cop got off. Why is it that only the cases where the victim's black, the media gets in an uproar, the whole society is burned to the ground for 9 months over a few select cases, and those cops are on trial right now?
So
There is no systemic abuse of blacks in this sense. There's more crime in black neighborhoods for whatever reason. Blacks, I believe, are more violent than other races, and they commit more violent crime, and so it's more dangerous in their neighborhoods. So look, I would agree. Fine, they have a grievance with the cops. They want to separate. I'm for that.
Hold on, Brandon. I just want to
do that for white people
because we're over time. I want to give Stephen a chance to ask one more question, but I will point out everything sort of up until the last couple minutes of this conversation has seemed like a sort of reasonable conversation of what I think is an appropriate and in some ways necessary examination of racial and ethnic dynamics regarding power in the world. But when you get to the judgment of a race or the attribution of a race based on statistics or circumstance, and you make it rather than about the people in that area in that study, and
there are racial differences though,
individuals or applying those labels to people as a whole, you're looking at American statistics and you're making a statement about black people. And if you're going to do that, it's racist if you don't say, these black people observed in this way have shown these statistics. If you say black people this or black people, now you're saying all black people on the entire planet, I'm going to judge for their skin color. There are these statistics that I'm seeing here. And that's where it crosses line to me that violates a sort of intellectual integrity and becomes an inappropriate racial judgment. That I would say,
there are racial differences, though, Adam.
It becomes racist.
There are racial differences between blacks and whites and Asians. There's a book by a guy called Philip Rushton. And one of those differences is prone to violent behavior, which is due to perhaps higher testosterone, perhaps certain genes that blacks have. They looked into these things. It could be the fact that they have low intelligence and low IQ on average.
You're talking about blacks in America versus blacks as a whole. So, and to not be considerate, to separate the experience of black Americans as descendants of slaves, as survivors of Jim Crow and years of institutional racism, and to attribute that to their race rather than the experience of that they have been subjected to because of their skin color.
Because look, if it has nothing to do with race, there's a study on the Equal Justice Initiative says that affluent blacks are more likely to be incarcerated than poor whites across every level of wealth.
The government doesn't like them. That's
absurd. That's absurd. The government loves them. The government loves black people. The government loves black people. The government panders to black people. Even Donald Trump says he's going to give $500 billion in loans to black people.
Let's let Stephen. Hey, let's let Stephen bring in one more question from the audience to wrap this up. Stephen, go ahead.
So before I bring in a question, I'm going to point everybody that thinks that he knows what he's talking about to a previous video with me and Adam. I was pulled over with warrants for my arrest with guns in the car, also drugs in the car. And he said, hey man, go ahead and do me a favor and get this handled. If I was a black person, they would have brought in fucking helicopters to follow my bitch ass and beat me. Okay.
Well, you got lucky then. You got lucky.
No, you said that white people don't commit as many crimes. Guns,
yes, sir. They don't.
drugs, warrants. How do you get more gangster? Tell me.
Well, that's an anecdotal story.
You can't say. So Stephen is challenging.
That doesn't prove anything.
You can't say that you commit more crimes when you're looking at government statistics of enforcement, charging, and of non-crimes. Because carrying a gun without a license is not a crime. There's no victim. Smoking pot is not a crime. There's no victim. and yet you see that is what's counting
Yeah,
for these
but the
statistics.
majority,
It's not
look, the
criminality.
statistics I'm talking about, I wasn't even talking about drug crimes. Blacks commit over half of the homicides in the United States.
You don't
And
think
these are
Yeah, because the white
these
people are
are
committing them in Afghanistan,
these
bro.
are blacks commit more than 90% of the interracial violence. So when
No.
they claim there's yes, according to the National Crime Victimization Survey, blacks commit 90% of violent assault against whites and 10% commit
And
violence
white
against
people
blacks.
commit a whole lot more
And
assault
that's a
than
study.
Muslims.
That's a study, not from
Go
the
to their
government. That's
hoods.
from
We take
calling up
airplanes.
victims of crimes. And so you're trying to tell me like there's some epidemic of white on black violence. It's absurd. There are numerous cases of blacks attacking whites for racial
I don't think
reasons,
there is at this point.
and they get
I think
off
there has
easy.
been, but there has been historically. I think at this point, is there an overwhelming phenomenon of white on black violence in America today? No, there's a bias in the legal system and the enforcement system, but historically, fuck yes, there has been, and that's not
Today there's an
Well, Adam,
overwhelming epidemic of black on white violence that doesn't get talked about because the media is anti-white. The media wants to blow up a story about George Floyd. What about all the white victims of black violence? Nowhere to be seen.
So my last
Nowhere to be
objection
seen.
to this here is that it's rich people against poor people. It's the powerful versus those who are their victims. And what this conversation has us doing even is making this about, do poor whites or poor blacks in America have it worse? And that's a much bigger thing that I think should unify people to fight against the powers that be, rather than look at how they're manipulating races. Let's differentiate each other and talk shit about the Jews.
But who are they manipulating? They're not manipulating white people. They're telling the world that we need to pander and pamper black people. That the corporations announced 20% more hires of blacks this year. Google is now putting black-owned businesses, advertising them on Google. Blacks are being pampered to by the system and the state. Corporations are giving $35 billion to black organizations this year. Blacks are being used in an agenda against white people. It's very obvious.
All right, no more Steven. No more Steven. Steven,
well,
you can
hasn't answered
get Steven out. That's enough. Steve, get Steven off the screen. Steven, you can put up comments until Brandon is done. But Brandon, I'll give you the last word on all of this, please. If you want to summarize your thoughts, plug your website or anything else you want to use to you want to do to
well, yeah, like in terms of the libertarian thing, like I wanted to say, I've been advocating recently a sort of breakaway from the system. So there's some people who are trying to convince others to reinvest into the system, to just like infiltrate the Republican Party and make them pro-white or something like that. I don't believe that will work. I think that's futile, because the money power controls those parties, and they'll get rid of you. So I advocate now of forming something similar to what you're doing, actually, but for white people, that we need to form a breakaway offshoot society, independent from the system, become self-sustaining, build our own networks, build our own companies, build our own farms, become as independent as possible from the system, because they're trying to choke us to death. This COVID hoax, for example, is kind of like the final push to, the jackboot on the neck of whites. They're trying to destroy the middle class, especially white middle class, empower the corporations. They want to mix whites up with non-whites so that they can have a slave race of just dregs that work on the plantation. They don't want you to collectivize. So I think homesteading, stuff like that, is all positive for whites. We just need to form ourselves in our own group, in our own communities, and break away from these other people. And if blacks want to do that, fantastic. Like I want them to do that. I just want white people to do the same thing and be allowed to do so in our own way.
Well,
so
thank
that's
you,
it.
Brad. All right. And your website, anything else you want to say about your content or what you're posting?
Yeah, you can follow me at Martinez Perspective on Telegram, and the website's alt-right.com.
Awesome. Thank you for your time today, sir.
Thank you.
Now, there is something that I do want to sort of celebrate, in sort of the intellectual evolution of racism. That sounds terrible, doesn't it? But what I mean is that if racism is a terrible idea in and of itself, and that is of judging superiority of human beings by race, or that certain races are superior or inferior in any way that goes beyond personal preferences, or things like that, or that would in any way justify dehumanizing or denying an individual their rights. Certainly that would be an evil form of racism. And it does seem to be legitimately motivated by a sort of deep-seated psychological set of instincts. So if it has to evolve in such a way from let's kill everybody who doesn't look like us to, well, let's encourage people to segregate and live in communities based on race, it's gone from evil to stupid. I think you should. I agree. It's funny because with even with someone like Brandon Martinez, we agree on a lot. We agree on a lot of fundamental observations of the world, of the evils of the current system of authority and government, and we agree on in many ways the solutions of separating from that system, of peaceful disengagement. But in terms of the exact motivation there, and this is really critical, there is a differentiation of being motivated. Like and this is what I will say is disgusting about this ideology, about the position that Brandon represents, is that whereas I want to separate from society with a group of people who want to avoid the police state, who want to avoid contributing to war, who want to avoid the surveillance state, who want to avoid all the evils of taxation and central banking and coercive control and the drug war and so on. And I want people who are smart and capable and principled and are going to bring something to the table and add to my community. They want white people or other white people or racial congregation. It's just dumb by comparison as a standard. What motivates you? Whatever it is that motivates someone like that to put race before all of those other considerations. As in, I would rather have a community of all white people, including dumb, incapable, violent, whatever, horrible, mouth breather white people, rather than, a smart, capable black guy, like, or of any other race, or a Jew like me. You're like, oh my, why? And you go, this is dumb. It's just the racial, like, you can observe real racial differences. You can look at racial histories. You can see the ethnic element of Zionism and say the answer to that has to be something fundamentally different. And it's not as simple as, replace imperial Jewish nationalism with non-imperial, white nationalism, or have that as a counterforce. No, it's to get rid of all nationalism and all prioritization of ethnicity as a value. Because that's what you're saying, is that more that my skin color or my genetic makeup or my facial features are more important than what's in my heart and soul and in my mind. And to reject racism as I do is to reject that and say, no, there are more important things that matter. All right, so we're going to skim through the rest of our headlines. And all right, I need it. When we finish the studio, there is going to be a way to prevent the dogs from scratching at the door while the show's going on. Marilyn, chill out. We got a few minutes left here. All right. We're going to skip through some headlines and back in with Stephen and the audience here to wrap up the show. The Jerusalem Post, Israel unveils the Iron Sting laser GPS-guided mortar munition, a network precision fire system that engages targets accurately and prevents collateral damage. 10-year development concludes with successful trials. We didn't have precision-guided mortars already. Kind of good news, prevent collateral damage, but if only this energy put into developing this weapon system was put into making it unnecessary. The Wall Street Journal has this also in our militarism block. U.S. deploys Coast Guard far from home to counter China. How are they doing that? Early last December, the crew of the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Myrtle Hazard sailed through the night, anchored off the Pacific island nation of Palau. I've been there, by the way. and boarded a group of Chinese boats to help seize tens of thousands of dollars worth of sea cucumber that had allegedly been harvested illegally. The fast response cutter, operating around 6,600 miles from the continental U.S. and roughly 750 miles from its home port in the U.S. territory of Guam, is part of the Coast Guard's newest growth area, helping counter China's growing naval power in the Pacific. China has used coordinated action by its fishing fleets, Coast Guard, and Navy to establish its presence in the South China Sea. It increasingly also has a presence in the South and Central Pacific. So, a lot of those resources that you see going to government, just going into still stupid kind of wrangling over stuff like this. All right, and speaking of China, from France24.com, biggest sandstorm in decade turns Beijing skies yellow. Yeah, one more reason to be glad you don't live there. Beijing was cloaked in thick yellow smog on Monday, with pollution levels surging off the charts as the worst sandstorm in a decade descended on China's capital from the Gobi Desert. Whereas the United States is experiencing the after effects now of a southwestern ish storm that hit over the weekend, affecting us here. We've had snow on and off the last few days. Yesterday was nice. Looks like it's going to be getting nicer. Beautiful, clear, sunny day here. But apparently in some parts of Colorado, they're still digging out from feet of snow that fell over the last few days. Now, quick round of headlines for a police state update. The HastingsTribune.com. Will insulting a police officer become a crime in Kentucky? The Senate approved it. Yeah. After one of the most emotional and confrontational debates in Kentucky's General Assembly this year, the state Senate Thursday night approved a bill that would make insulting a police officer a crime. Remember who's in charge? Whoever you're not allowed to criticize, or their henchmen. Some members of the Senate said they were deeply offended by the legislation, claiming it was unconstitutional and an overreach. The bill, which the Senate approved on a 22-11 vote after about an hour's debate, would enhance punishment for crimes related to rioting, including making it a crime to insult or taunt a police officer if the comment provokes a violent response. So you can yell at a cop if he's just sitting there chilling and doesn't do anything, that's okay. But if the cop punches you, now retroactively it was a crime for you to say those things to a cop. So this has to go to the House still, but if the Senate approved it 22-11, it would be really interesting to see if this goes through and someone gets charged. And then I'm pretty confident that if this goes to the Supreme Court, that law would get overturned. The NewsObserver.com, North Carolina High Court backs judge who made blogger write essay and delete negative comments. Another sad comment on the state of freedom of speech here. A judge in Western North Carolina didn't go too far when he charged and convicted a blogger of a crime for reporting a court hearing, then forced the blogger to write a lengthy essay about respect, post it online, and delete any negative comments people might write. They just turn you into a puppet and speak through you now. No, this isn't going to hold up if it goes to the Supreme Court either, I hope. From the Daily Mail, because we go to Britain for news on American civil disobedience, Breonna Taylor marches turn ugly. LAPD patrol car runs over two protesters, and armed activists shut down Louisville roads as thousands take to the streets on the anniversary of her death. Also in LA, streets of rage, LAPD car rams two protesters as Breonna Taylor anniversary demos turned violent across the U.S. Shocking video shows an LAPD patrol car ramming two protesters as demos on the anniversary of the Breonna Taylor shooting turned violent across the U.S. last night. And it's kind of interesting to read these stories after that interview with Brandon Martinez, because you think, well, the state wants, the powers that be want the police to enforce their laws, but they also want chaos. They have an interest in infighting, so they're gonna promote Black Lives Matter. They're gonna legally. And here's the video. Yeah, that's assault with a deadly weapon. I mean, you almost even attempted murder if you really want to do it. When you hit it, I mean, maybe not an attempted murder, but pretty close. I mean, low speed, but then ramming through protesters. That's definitely assault with a deadly weapon at very least. I hope the cops are held accountable, but I wouldn't be surprised if they don't. But what I'm getting at here is that there is we're fighting amongst each other instead of fighting the powers that be. And whether you think it's the Jews or the bankers or the powers that be, whatever you want to call it, the they, them, those that just won't leave you alone. Certainly, this kind of fighting the cops in the street is not helpful. AFP from Yahoo.com. Baltimore Sun deal sets up major test for nonprofit news model. We might come back to that story. In Myanmar, people protest against military coup with tattoos. We're going to come back to that. Fun one here from Forbes. Americans are spending their stimulus checks on guns. Yeah, not surprising. I'm thinking about buying a gun here too, not a firearm, but an air gun. I'm thinking if anybody wants to make a recommendation, we might make this the contest for this week. Best air gun, air rifle, or air gun, whatever, air gun for home defense. And I know if you're not familiar, that might sound kind of out there, like Adam, air guns for home defense. I mean, like for taking down people. Yeah, there is at least $1,000 one. I don't know, maybe it's cheaper now, but when I first started looking at this after I became a felon, the Benjamin Bulldog is or Benjamin Bullpup is a bullpup style rifle, or Bulldog. Benjamin Bulldog is a bullpup style rifle where the firing mechanism is in front of the magazine and the chamber in the back, so it's the muzzle goes. Anyway, look it up. It's a cool design. A couple quick Bitcoin stories. Bitcoin surpasses $60,000 in record high as rally accelerates. This was Saturday. Pretty exciting to see that. And then motherboard Vice, and then as every time Bitcoin surges, there's resistance. Vice has this headline: Abkhazia posts videos of illegal Bitcoin mines that are causing power blackouts. Yeah, the tiny disputed Black Sea territory has hundreds of illegal Bitcoin mining facilities hidden in basements, villages, and shopping containers. Well, yeah, there's so many other problems with the story, but a lot of fun stuff if you want to check it out. Again, links, as always, at t.me/Adam versus the man. Before we sign off and get to the good news in history for March 13th, let's bring Steven back on and check in with you, the viewer. Your mic is off. Don't worry.
Can you hear me?
You get the hang of this.
How about this? Can you hear me?
All
right. So the commenter of the day is Steve. Steve, you need to be very, very happy because I didn't want to give it to you because you're misspelling my fucking name.
I think your parents misspelled your name.
But it's Steve Westcott. He commented very, very early on this morning. Need more chemtrails for our vitamin uptake. So Steve, email us. It's Steven at the Freedom Line or Jim at the Freedom Line, and you will get a membership to the Producers Club. Comment. So let's go to the comments. By the way, I am putting people in timeout for the rest of the show. If you're going to threaten Adam Kokesh's life, if you're going to threaten somebody's life, you're fucking done. Like, I'm not okay with that. I don't care if you don't like him because he's Jewish or because of his haircut. Yeah, you're getting death threats over your haircut because racists are just so intellectual.
Is it more? Do I look more Jewish? I mean, generally, the bushiness of the beard is a Jewish trending associated thing, but not really.
Yeah,
I thought it made my nose look smaller. And the more hair and everything, the smaller my nose looks. I'm trying to look less Jewish, if anything, right?
Yeah. So Steve won the the stupidest comment because I'm stupid shit the internet says, Steven. That's my title. But Seven Sons gets the best comment. He wants you to get Ron Paul on the show. I think Ron Paul,
absolutely.
I think Ron Paul would be a good. So, and I want to comment on something, but this gentleman says you should put IEDs at your door for home defense. I assume. Why not a potato cannon? I feel like if someone pulled a potato cannon on my ass, I would run. Like, why need an air gun? Shoot a motherfucker with a potato
Because it's one round.
that you know of.
You just have to have like an art or a show like an what's it, the LRAD, the like 5x5 missile block. Have like an LRAD, a shoulder mounted LRAD of potato guns.
And then
Like this giant like box of pipes that you can just pick up on your shoulder and go boom, 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 and it shoots out potatoes. Is that?
And then what we'll do is we'll get you some phosphorus, and we'll get multicolored phosphorus. So like it'll be like red, white, blue, pink, yellow, orange, green, for like different color streams. Light a bitch ass up with a multicolored potato. That'd be great. I don't care who you are. So this gentleman thinks that Antifa are truly the dumbest people on earth. But we had a really deep comment section. But I think that this was also one of our most watched shows on a live basis. So that would make sense. But I mean, I'm not going to go through all of them. To be very honest with you, I am sorry that I lost my cool. I didn't appreciate the fact I asked him questions and he refused to answer very basic questions, and he refused to kind of acknowledge. Because honestly, like, white people might not be killing more black people than black people are killing white people, but we're killing a fuck ton of Muslims in the last 20 years. Like
I mean, that's why at some point, like, that kind of conversation sucks you into either, if you want to be anti-racist, to be defending a race against racial judgments. And I wanted to cut that off and just be like, no, this is crossing a line of just of intellectual fallacy that I can clearly point out as logically problematic, but that also leads you to a position that is demeaning or attempting to demean an entire group of people based on race, not based on experience or statistics or this group that's being looked at. And like, yeah, these things about black crime statistics in America, yeah, I'm not trying to deny that or sweep that under the rug. They need to be critically examined, but examined with intellectual integrity, not a bias towards racial analyses or over attribution to race. And that's a sort of sad inclination that a lot of humans have very much built in. And I don't know if it's sad, or it's sort of like a psychological appendix that we're evolving out of. Like you think about like state of nature, your tribe versus every other tribe for survival. Yeah, if they look different from you, fuck them up, like or you die. That's kind of that was the way of the human experience at one point.
At one point, but we don't use rocks for self-defense anymore.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
We don't use pointy sticks to dig holes with.
Well, it's just like your appendix is still in your body because you evolved to have that. Similarly, this is, I think, an appendix of the brain that we just have to be aware of. And when it gets infected, fucking cut it out.
So, and one of the things that just doesn't make sense to me on an intellectual basis or a practical basis on any realm, I'm forming my own community, right? I hang out with libertarians because I'm a libertarian, and here locally, if you go to my church and you own a business and I need that product, I go to that business first. Right? Those are my people. Those are people I love. If you're an Adam versus the Man guy, and especially if you're in the producers club or on one of the Adam chats, and you produce something and I need it, I'll contact you and you can ship it to me but it doesn't make sense to go, you're white, you must be good. Because he's like, black people are stupid. Bitch, have you met a white person on methamphetamine? Like, they're not very smart.
I want to be biased against people who don't smoke weed. You're not allowed in my community.
Well, that's a mental health thing, so. I posted.
All right, with that, Steven, we're over time. We got to sign off. Check out AdamVersusTheMan.com. Find us on Patreon there. Support our sponsors. Buy some merch there. Most importantly, go to Twitter.com at Adam Kokesh. Check out the job listing there. It says Adam Kokesh is recruiting. It's on all my social media, but Twitter, it's pinned. Check that out. We are recruiting for help with Homefront Battle Buddies, the Gardenia Sovereignty Project, and of course, Adam versus the Man. So check that out. There it is. Jim's got it on screen. Good news in this day in history, 240 years ago today, Sir William Herschel first observed Uranus from the garden of his house. And he used a homemade 6.2-inch reflecting telescope. Initially reported it as either a nebulous star, perhaps a comet. And in recognition of his achievement, King George III, remember the guy we didn't want to pay taxes to at one point, gave Herschel an annual stipend for him to move to Windsor so that the royal family could look through his telescopes. Herschel's home in Bath, Somerset, England, is now the Herschel Museum of Astronomy, and Uranus was named after the ancient Greek deity of the sky, Uranus, the grandfather of Zeus. And with that, peace and love, y'all. Choose happiness and be excellent to each other.